The room was silent except for the slow ticking of an expensive clock, the kind that measures time without mercy. On a leather chair sat a billionaire who owned towers of glass and steel, his eyes gently closed, his breathing calm and deliberate. Across from him stood a small boy, his clothes stained with dirt, his hands trembling inside oversized yellow gloves. What happened in the next few minutes would shake the billionaire more than any market crash ever had. Before this story goes any further, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of a good heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel to support stories that remind us what truly matters. The billionaire was known across the city as a man who trusted no one. He had built his empire from nothing, clawing his way out of poverty with ruthless discipline and a belief that the world rewarded only the clever and the cold. Kindness, he believed, was a luxury for the weak. Over the years, that belief had cost him friendships, family, and peace. Now in his late 70s, surrounded by wealth but hollowed out by suspicion, he decided to conduct one final test not of numbers or loyalty contracts, but of character. The janitor, who cleaned his private office every night, was a quiet man. He arrived before dawn, left before anyone noticed, and never once looked the billionaire in the eye. The billionaire had observed him from a distance for months, noticing how he wiped desks with care, straightened crooked frames, and once gently rescued a trapped bird from the office hallway. One evening, when the janitor mentioned he couldn't stay late because his son had no one else, the billionaire made a sudden decision. He asked the janitor to bring the boy the next day. The boy arrived shy and wide-eyed, no more than 8 years old, his hair messy, his face smudged with honest dirt. He stood too straight, as if afraid of breaking something expensive with his breath alone. The billionaire instructed the janitor to clean the safe room, a room few had ever entered, and told the boy to wait inside while he worked. Then, without warning anyone, the billionaire leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes, slowing his breathing until it seemed he had drifted into sleep. The safe behind him was open, revealing stacks of cash arranged with meticulous precision. Anyone could see it. Anyone could reach for it. The billionaire waited, listening. The janitor stepped away to fetch supplies, leaving the boy alone with what many would consider temptation beyond imagination. The child noticed the sleeping man first, then the open safe. His eyes widened, not with greed, but with confusion. He took a step forward, then another, his small shoes echoing softly against the polished floor. For a long moment nothing happened, and the billionaire's heart beat steadily, convinced he already knew the ending. But then the boy froze. He looked at the man's face carefully, noticing the slight tremor in his fingers, the way his chest rose and fell too deliberately. Something didn't feel right. Slowly, the boy reached out, not toward the money, but toward the billionaire himself. He hesitated, then gently touched the man's sleeve, as if checking whether he was real. The billionaire nearly broke his act then, startled by the tenderness of the touch. The boy stepped back and did something unexpected. He dragged a chair closer, climbed onto it, and reached for the open safe door. The billionaire's mind raced. This was it, he thought. This was the truth of humanity revealed. But instead of grabbing the money, the boy carefully pushed the heavy door closed, straining with his small arms until it shut with a soft click. Then he locked it. Next, the boy quietly removed his dirty gloves and wiped his hands on his shirt. He walked over to the desk, pulled a napkin from his pocket, and gently placed it over the billionaire's hand, as if to keep it warm. Then he sat back down on the floor, his back against the wall, waiting patiently for his father to return. The billionaire felt something inside him crack. Minutes later, the janitor returned and quickly ushered his son away, apologizing for the inconvenience, unaware of what had just happened. Only after they left did the billionaire finally open his eyes. The room felt different, heavier, as if the walls themselves had witnessed something sacred. For the first time in decades, the billionaire felt ashamed, not of others, but of himself. He had tested the wrong people all his life. Contracts, background checks, surveillance. None of it measured what mattered most. In that boy's simple act, he saw integrity without reward, honesty without recognition, and compassion untouched by wealth. That night he couldn't sleep. Memories of his own childhood flooded back, days when he too had been poor, when his mother taught him to return lost coins even if they meant skipping dinner. Somewhere along the road to success, he had buried those lessons under fear and ambition. The next morning, the billionaire summoned the janitor. The man arrived trembling, certain he had done something wrong. Instead, the billionaire handed him a sealed envelope. Inside was not cash, but a letter and a set of documents. The letter spoke of gratitude, of trust restored, and of a future changed. The documents were for a scholarship fund set up in the boy's name, covering education through university, not just for him, but for children like him. The janitor broke down, unable to understand why this was happening. The billionaire only nodded and said nothing. Some things didn't need explanation. In the months that followed, the billionaire changed. He stopped testing people with traps and started watching how they treated those who had nothing to offer. He reopened programs he had shut down, funded schools he had ignored, and, most importantly, learned to sit quietly and listen. The boy visited occasionally, always polite, always curious, always kind. And every time the billionaire saw him, he remembered the moment that had frozen him in place, not fear, but awe. As the billionaire's health declined, he made one final change to his will. A large portion of his fortune would go toward foundations focused on dignity, education, and compassion. In a private note attached, he wrote that the decision was inspired by a child who taught him that wealth is not what you protect, but what you give away. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe. Stories like this live because of your support. And before the ending, we have one special request. Please comment below with a single word that this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you know. When the billionaire passed away, the boy, now a young man, stood quietly at the back of the funeral hall. He wore a clean suit, his hands steady, his eyes filled not with pride but gratitude. He had never known the full weight of what he had done that day, only that he had acted the way his father taught him to act. And somewhere beyond wealth, beyond tests, beyond suspicion, a man finally rested in peace, because a child chose kindness when no one was watching.